This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On Air.
Welcome to the OI podcast, brought to you by the Otago Institute, the Otago branch of the Royal Society for Arts and Sciences, chatting about arts, sciences and mataranga Māori. Today we are super happy to have Dr. Angela Brandt here in the studio with us, and we're shouting out about making our birds count. That's the title for this episode, Making Our Birds Count. We spent quite a long time coming up with that title. And this episode is all about garden birds, specifically New Zealand garden birds. And we are so lucky to have Dr. Angela Brandt here, the coordinator for the New Zealand Garden Bird Survey, in the studio. Angela is a botanist who holds a Bachelor of Arts in Biology from Colgate University in Upstate, New York. I'm going to ask Angela about the Colgate University afterwards. She also has a PhD in Zoology from Oregon State University and currently is a senior researcher in Ecology at Manaaki, Whenua, Landcare Research. Thank you very much for joining us here today, Angela.
Thank you, Dr. Barb, for having me.
It's going to be fantastic. I'm dead keen to hear all about the New Zealand Garden Bird Survey. And, of course, it happens every year, doesn't it?
Yes, every year since 2007.
Every year since 2007. And when exactly is it?
It is happening. It always happens the last weekend of June to the first weekend of July. And so this year that's 29th of June to 7th of July.
Right, so there's a couple of weeks that you can do the survey in?
Yeah, we make sure to cover 2 weekends because we know that most of us need to be off work or school to
yes. Especially in winter, right?
During daylight hours.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we're only talking about daylight birds here, right?
Yes. We ask everyone to be out during the hours of daylight in those 9 days.
Right.
And the survey form will actually give you a little bit of a warning if you try to choose a time at night.
Right. So the survey knows that if you've got the time wrong, or if you've just pushed those hours of dusk too far, the survey will know that. Mm-hmm. Right. Oh, that's amazing. So it's 9 days, includes 2 weekends, and it's always sort of in the middle of winter.
Yes.
And is there a reason that it's in the middle of winter instead of like spring or summer or autumn? Or
yes.
Somewhere when it's a little bit warmer to sit outside?
Nope, that's a very good question, and we get asked it quite a bit. It's actually in our FAQs on the website.
Oh, right. Okay.
But it's actually a common time to do bird surveys and citizen science surveys like this. Other countries in the world will have a survey kind of around the same time of year.
Oh, right.
But there's a few different reasons. One is it's a time that a lot of birds will actually be coming into your garden because it's not the best time to be out foraging in the wilds. There's more food, shelter often in our garden.
So they're thinking, okay, pantry's open and I'm not busy like trying to find a mate or trying to bring up kids or whatever. I'm just going to make it through the winter.
Yes. And bringing up the point about kids is that all the birds are at an adult life stage, so they look like adult birds.
Right. So we're not getting confused, because sometimes it is a bit confusing if you've got like a baby, or not even a baby, but an adolescent bird. Like,
yes, they can have different plumage.
Sort of have different plumage and they look a bit different, and then you just spend forever thinking, is it a sparrow?
Yes.
Is it what? I don't know.
And then another point is that we are looking at birds that are resident in New Zealand. So any of the birds that migrate here from elsewhere will have gone back to their...
So we don't want summer migrates. And birds only migrate here for the summer? No one migrates here for the winter, right?
Not that I know of, but if someone knows of one, it'd be really interesting to hear that. But yes.
Okay, cool. So we're just doing it in the winter, and we're going... So just adults, if you do see like a late fledgling or something, like...
I mean, you'd still count them, obviously, but the idea is making it kind of as easy as possible. And in some ways you might think, well, actually, I can see some of the birds in my garden easier in the winter if you've got some of those trees that use their leaves.
Like if they're not natives, if they're like deciduous trees and they've dropped all their leaves, it's actually sometimes quite easy. And does it matter if you've got like if you've got like a peka, like nectar feeder, or if you've got a bird table or something, then you're going to have more birds. That's
and that is
that
an
not
excellent
distorting
point.
Everything?
So we actually ask a few other questions, not just which birds you've seen,
right?
But also, are you feeding your birds?
Right.
Because,
and then what are you feeding them? Right.
And then what are you feeding them? We ask what kind of garden vegetation you have. How big is your garden? So there's
right. Okay. So there's other questions there, but all kind of easy things that you can just like look
They're
at the
all
garden.
things that you should know, but there's only a few questions that you have to answer. So if you don't know something, you just fill out the things you can.
Yeah, no. Okay, cool. And is it aimed at adults? Is it aimed at children? Who's it really aimed at?
It's aimed at everyone who wants to participate. So we're really keen for anybody who wants to go to a garden or park, or
so you don't actually have to do it in your garden.
No, you can do it in your local park as well.
So you can do it in a park,
yes,
or just like anywhere where there's birds. Can you do it like along the coast? What if you do it like what?
So
if
you do need to have an address. So it needs to be a place that.
So Woodhall Gardens is an address, right? So you could go to Woodhall Gardens or I don't know, the Dinosaur Park. Presumably that has a proper name, which I can't quite remember off the top of my head right now.
Yes, but you can find those addresses, and also we have. I mean, there's a map on the form, so you can find the spot that you've been at that park.
Right.
And,
okay. Cool.
And it uses Address Finder. So if you start to type in,
so you start to type in the address, it just fills in the postcard and all the boring stuff for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Make it as easy as possible.
Make it as easy as possible.
And as accurate as possible,
and
right?
as accurate as possible, yeah. Because you don't want to have someone just get the numbers around the wrong way and then all of a sudden you've got that garden, potentially on the top of Mount Cargill just because they've got the numbers wrong or something.
Christchurch versus Dunedin. I mean, how many places have a main street
or a Queen Street
or
there's a billion, George Street, Princess Street. They're all Queen Street. I think we said Queen Street already, didn't we? Sorry. Albert Street.
Yes.
There are just those kind of really common names that get repeated everywhere. Yeah, so that's really cool. So the form should be easy. And do you have to have a computer to fill it in? Do you have to fill it in online? That's the other big question.
Yes, we do need to have some kind of access to a device, so computer, tablet.
So the
phone,
survey. So you can't get a paper copy of the form. It's just an online form.
Yes.
But of course you can always just go to a public library because public libraries, especially in Dunedin, I imagine in other places, all have amazing librarians and they have computer access, so I'm sure that they will be able to help anyone who's there. If you've never been on a computer before, if such people exist still, they will help you get on, and then it's all open access, right? It's all you don't have to have passwords and things to get on. You just go on.
No, of course. Yep. And there's a link on the website.
Yeah. And I'll just say the website now.
Yes.
It is just Garden Bird Survey, so there's only one S in the middle there, .nz. So it's really simple, all run together, there's no spaces or hyphens, anything. So GARDENBIRDSURVEY.nz, which is really, I'm making it sound way more complicated than it is. It's really simple. Basically just type Garden Bird Survey in. And you will come up. And I just did that. And I will put the link to this in the episode information and also in the Facebook page when we put it there. But I just did this. And I was just like, oh, my gosh, it is such a gorgeous website. It's got these really, really gorgeous little kind of cartoon New Zealand birds. And, of course, the birds aren't all New Zealand natives, are they?
No.
So there are all those, the common sort of English European garden birds. So you've got, what have we got there? Is there a list of just the species here? Must be. I'm amazed at how gorgeous it is. If you've got a kid at home or anyone who just likes cool graphic art, you will go on this site and you will think, these are just gorgeous little cartoons of birds. And there's just a million resources. Is this a really easy take part tab, identification, competitions. What about the competitions? Oh my gosh, goodness. Yes. Can anyone enter them or do you have to be a kid?
No. Well, the colouring competition is just for kids.
No, it's for 3 age categories, it says here. Correct me if I'm wrong. 6 and under, 7 to 11, and 12 to 15. And there's it's an outline and you just colour it in, right?
Yes.
And that's, what do you win? Do you win?
Oh, you do win. I don't know if I remember what the prizes are for the colouring competition this year because they change each year.
Oh, they change each year. Oh, that's amazing.
Yes.
Oh, wow. And there's a People's Choice one.
Yes.
Artistic Merit. And then you get a big announcement of the winners in late July.
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
Exactly.
I remember when we shared an office, I should just just fess up to the world at large that Andrew and I did used to share an office. But every year there's this massive big box of the prizes, right? I remember there being prizes. There was chocolate fish and things at one stage.
Yes.
And there was some really cool like bird feeders and like I don't know what there is this year, but in the past there's been like really cool.
Yes, and sometimes there's we've had and then there's the photographic competition.
Oh yes,
as well.
yes. I was going to get to it. So there's the colouring competition, and then if you go on the same tab, there's a photography competition. Now, is that new or was that always there?
It hasn't always been there. I think we've been doing it since about 2020.
Wow, and this one here says awesome prizes, and it actually has a picture of a camera.
Yes, we've had very generous donors to help us with those prizes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Like OM system, OM5 mirrorless camera with 14 to 150 millimeter lens silver. Like it is a proper camera.
Yes.
And then the People's Choice Award is an Olympus 10x50 S Poro prism binoculars. And they look like super professional.
Yep.
That is so cool.
Well,
and who gives you those? OM system says here. Yep. And Rubber Monkey.
Yes. Yeah, wow. So generous contributions to help us do this stuff.
No, that's cool. And how is People's Choice? How is that actually judged?
There's voting on the website and maybe emailed out to the mailing list, because I definitely have seen that voting happening. But I can't imagine how people choose, because we always get really neat submissions.
Right.
But also the photos, the winners or some of those actually end up like on the cover of the report.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool.
And we use them in some of those media releases. So it's fantastic.
And the pictures are actually on
to share those.
Like the pictures with the voting, they're sort of on the website, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, cool. Obviously not yet, because people haven't taken the pictures. Do they have to take them of a garden bird, and do they have to take them while they're doing the survey?
We like them to be relevant birds.
Right, yeah. Because if you want to put them on
in your garden.
Yeah.
But we're really keen to see. I mean, there's the description of it's pretty broad. Like, they don't have to be taken during those 9 days. Like, if you've taken an amazing photo of a keruru during the spring when it's eating.
Oh, yeah, it says here,
flowers,
must be taken in New Zealand, right? So don't go travelling around Europe taking pictures of robins, hoping that that's going to help you out.
No.
Because it ain't.
We do like to see birds in New Zealand. Right. But pretty broad.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing, eh?
Yeah.
Submissions open 7 a.m. Wednesday the 26th, which is that the same day?
That's just before the survey starts.
Yeah.
Because they can be from
before.
Other times.
And the submissions close midnight Wednesday the 10th of July. Voting for People's Choice closes Wednesday the 17th of July. And there's a form there. Submit your entries. It's all on this amazing website. God, I love this website. It's actually really easy to navigate around. It's got like a really good, I know I sound crazy when I say that, but not all websites are made the same, and some are easy to navigate around and have the obvious things in obvious places, and others don't. But kudos.
I mean, that's a really good point, though, because you give me a chance to shout out to my amazing team. Like, I'm one person, but I have this group of incredibly talented people who work with me, and all together we get this thing going. So we've got our brand and comms team, including the digital team that's responsible for the website.
Right.
We've got our software developers that help us with the form. We've got our data gurus and analytical modeling geniuses who do all of the data manipulation and analysis for the reports, and also getting the data uploaded to share online.
Right.
I mean, it's
Yeah,
I hope I didn't forget about it. We've got our social researchers who bring in some of the social research side. It's it's a cool project.
Just sticking on the social researchers there, do you have an idea of who's most likely to take part in the survey?
Oh, that's a really good question. So we did, for several years, we actually did a survey of participants in the survey.
Right.
Try to say that
like
twice.
Where the locations were, or demographics, like how old they were.
Demographics, how they heard about the survey, what they got out of doing the survey, kind of all those types of things, because we wanted to understand.
What were the answers?
So there were quite a range of people, but it actually was quite interesting. I think almost multiple peaks, but a lot of people actually were parents, I think, of children. Like, it was sort of middle-aged mums and dads, and but then a lot of kids as
Because
well.
it's actually something that a school class could do together, right?
Exactly.
Right? Like
Yep, and we have resources for schools to participate.
Oh, right. So that would help the teacher out, right? Because I'm just thinking all those primary school teachers out there are going, oh, my God, I'm going to be stuck here trying to help all these kids identify all these species of garden birds. I'm just like, that's too much. So, what's your advice for a primary school teacher who thinks, okay, it'd be a great thing for the kids to go out there. We've got like Ravensbourne school, 17 kids in the school. It's a nice little country school. It's small. How do they do it?
So there's actually a spot on the website that talks about doing it as part of the school curriculum.
Oh, right. Okay.
And there's some advice there.
I bet it's under take part.
Probably is. Or resources for schools, resources for teachers.
Look, on resources, it's got a whole heap of different things. Resources for individuals and families, community groups and organisations, teachers, te reo Māori resources, create a bird-friendly garden, media kit, quizzes in te reo Māori, video series, have you got what it takes, and supplies and collateral.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So when you've got, younger, like primary school classes, for example, that'll talk about how you might, have groups of kids and each of them does like 10 to 15 minute slots over that hour of the survey, and then you pool all that together and submit, one. So there's ways that it could be made easier for school groups. Yeah. And we've also actually teamed up with the Science Learning Hub. Right. And so they've produced some resources last year.
And they've got these most amazing posters. Sorry, guys, I've just seen. So we'll get back to the Science Learning Hub. But I've just seen they've got these amazing posters on the bottom that you can obviously print out. There's a little thing to download it as a PDF. And look how gorgeous that is. And it's got those, like, most of the birds, the most common birds, right? And it's like really cool little graphics. Like, they're not pictures of the birds. I mean, they're pictures, but they're not photos. But they've got all the identifying things on it. Like the minor bird there has got that bright yellow beak and the yellow bit on it, and it's like all the colours in the right place. So it's actually kind of easier to see which bird is which, because you can only see the bits that you're really looking for on the little graphics, and then you just look for those bits. Oh, that's so cool. I love those posters. Yeah, so teachers can just print out the posters, stick them all around their walls. And so the Science Learning Hub, were you saying that you've got videos to go?
Yep. So we've got some resources from last year, and a couple of us did a webinar and talked about the different aspects of the survey and how it might be used in different levels of science curriculum. But then also this year, shout out to our Kairangaho partners at Manaaki Whenua, who have developed some te reo resources in partnership with the Science Learning Hub, and those are going to be coming out on Monday. So for
that's going to be
te reo
awesome.
and te ao Māori kind of curriculum, so linking it up, making it broader.
So all those te koroko papa Māori out there, which there's last time I thought about it, there were 72. So that's actually quite a lot of schools, and all those resources there, and of course the surveys in te reo as well, and the identification, and of course all the birds, even the non-native ones, do have te reo names. Mm-hmm. Should we put Angela on the spot and get her to run through all the names? Shall we put her on the spot? We can do. It's quite. No, it's not. It's not.
Are we gonna quiz me?
Yeah. Well, no. I was just thinking. Oh, there is a quiz here. Actually, there is a quiz. I saw that in the resources. Quizzes. Here we go. How much does Angela really know? Oh, how well. Oh no, this is pictures. I can't do that over the radio. I keep getting told off for doing visual things over the radio.
Do you just want to read out the 14 common species that we report on?
Oh, right. Kereru.
Kereru is one Maori name for the bird, but it can also be known as the kukupa, depending on where you are in the country.
That's true. And I think some people call it the wood pigeon.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true. Fantail.
Piwaka waka.
Greenfinch.
That's a good question. I don't know if that one has a te reo name, but it might.
Might do.
Might do.
It's an annoying bird. The tui.
There's the name tui, but it also is known as a koko.
The blackbird.
Now that one's a great one for testing just your te reo skills, because manu pango, so literally bird that is black.
Bird that is black. Bird that is black. And it's good for getting your pronunciation right, because it's got those NGs in it as well.
Yeah, it's good practice.
And that minor bird. We were talking about that the other day when we had Michael Knapp on, and I was like, oh, where is that from?
India.
India. Yeah, it's from India. That's what Michael Knapp said as well.
And it's a transliteration for that name, so Maina, but
right.
spelled differently, Maina.
Right, yeah, that makes sense. Song thrush.
Oh, and I'm sure I should know that one, but that one's escaping me.
Yeah, we'll just skip past that one. The bellbird.
Korimako.
And the house sparrow.
Tiu.
Tiu. Yeah, so tiu is like the tui, but the other way around.
Yeah, and I don't know where that name came from, but I do rather wonder if it has to do with the way it sounds.
Yeah, and a lot of bird names are derived from the way they sound.
Right. Ruru, I think.
Oh, yeah,
One,
that
right?
makes sense, yeah.
Yeah.
And weirdly, a lot of birds, like a lot of languages, have the name for the bird that's derived from the way it sounds, but the names are different because different people kind of hear them slightly different or accentuate a different part of the syllable. It's quite a, like, I don't know if we want to go into the whole discussion of linguistics and how people name birds, but it's quite interesting. Okay, cool. Starling.
Taringi.
Taringi. Where's that come from?
I am not sure about that.
We'll check up on these things.
Yeah.
Silvereye. Now, Silvereye is a funny one because it's not really introduced. It's a self-introduced one, isn't it?
Yes. So
that's one that sort of gets a bit debated on whether it's a native or whether it's introduced.
So it introduced itself. So in that sense, we think of it as native because humans did not bring it here.
Yeah.
But it's more recently arrived from Australia. Yeah. So I think it's maybe 100 years ago.
Yeah. And so it's probably one of those ones that Europeans again modified the landscape to the extent that them coming in, and they probably were coming in, and possibly their population in Australia also increased because of the modified habitat there, and then just the
because of course we see a lot of them in our gardens, and they really do well.
And they do love coming to fat balls and things as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Goldfinch.
That's another one that I think may have a te reo name now, and I can't remember it.
And then we've just got the dunnock and the chaffinch left.
I don't know the dunnock, but chaffinch is pahirini.
Pahirini. Now, sorry, I should give you a big clap there. Well done, Angela. Now, what I'm wondering is there's not a lot of natives on there. What if someone sees a kaka, for instance, in their garden? Is there a space to put that?
Yes. So we've just read out a list of very common garden birds because those are the ones that we do an analysis on their trends every year.
Right, because you've got the most data, right? Because they're the most common ones.
But we are interested in every bird that is seen. So the list of species on the form is essentially all, and you won't find the form yet because the survey hasn't started.
Right, yeah,
so the form is set up so that all the common birds you'll see, which is more than on that list. So there are the gulls are on there.
And so they've got little tally cards next to them on the form, is that right? So you can just it's really
those
easy.
will all be, the ones you're most likely to see are all in the main part of the form, but then there's a drop-down list where if you saw a kaka or or even a penguin.
Kiwi or a takahi. I mean, can people just go up to Orokonui and do it?
Probably could, actually.
Because it's a place that's got an address. I mean, that would be weird, wouldn't it? Because then you'd have takahi coming up on the thing. But there's there's tomtits and robins and stuff, or like on the start of the Kepler track, for instance, or
anywhere with an address.
National, anywhere with an address, right?
You can do. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Craziness. Yeah. So, and like a lot of people, because we've had weird things come into our garden because we live right next to the harbour. So sometimes we've had like baby cormorants get lost and just fly. Honestly, Momo was like, "What the heck?" Yeah. But, Momo's the dog, but yeah.
But that's a good point though, because we are New Zealand. A lot of people do live near the coast. And seabirds actually go quite far inland.
Yeah, and like gulls and stuff.
Yes. So all of those birds are there.
Right.
Many of them we don't usually get reported in the Garden Bird Survey. Not surprising. But all of them. We want to know about all of them.
So anything you see, and it's, I'm making fun saying, Orokonui and trying to find the craziest place that I can think of that people would go and do a New Zealand Garden Bird Survey. So obviously, predominantly, it's kind of asking people, go where you normally go, right? In your garden or in your local park, in your school playground, those sort of places.
But we're really keen on, remote stations and lifestyle blocks and things. You can be it's wherever you are.
Because, of course, the whole survey is kind of geographically referenced, right? Because once you've got that address, then you can look at trends across regions and different places in New Zealand, as well as looking at the national overall trend. Yes. Because there must be some species that maybe across New Zealand they're increasing, but in some little region they're decreasing. Oh, look, she's pointing at something here. I'll give the piece of paper back to her with the numbers on it.
Yes. Cheat sheet. Yep. So
I see this little. So can people see this data?
Yes. So we do an annual State of Garden Birds report,
and that's just public information. Anyone
that
can
is public information. So
wow.
if you look on the website at results.
Oh, results. Look, there's a tab there. Look, 2023, 2022, 2021, 2020. Look at that.
Yes, so you can find the PDF. There's the national report, and then there's a report for each region as well.
Wow, look at that.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm not going to read this all out on air.
No, that might take a little bit longer than we have right now.
But anyone who wants to go there can go there. And again, it's got those beautiful graphics. So it's got the same little graphic pictures of the birds. It's got their name. It's got their name in Te Reo Māori, if there is a Te Reo Māori name for it. And I think I've got that here. No, there's no. I can just report that Angela did get 100% of the names right, for which there was a Te Reo Māori name.
I will point out actually that there has been an updated checklist of bird names released in 2022, and we have this year updated the online form, and so there are some additional Te Reo names. I can't remember if, for example, the greenfinch and the goldfinch might have been ones we've included, but we've added more of those to the form, and so it's a good chance to practice your Te Reo
pronunciation,
names as
well. If nothing else. Yeah. And obviously some of those names, especially of the native birds, the actual name varies regionally as well.
Yes, and we do recognise that, and we've kind of tried to use perhaps the most common name, but completely acknowledge that there are differences regionally.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, so let's go back to the actual results.
Yes. So there are some species that are really, actually the greenfinch one, just because it's caught my eye. It's the same 10-year trend that we saw in this latest report across every region. But once you look at the 5-year trend, because those trends might not be linear, right? They might
could
be
go up and down,
increasing, or it could be curving up or down. So the 5-year trend, though, we see that we still see kind of that shallow increasing trend in Canterbury and Otago, but but all of the North Island regions are actually showing 5-year declines.
Right. So I guess that means that over a decade they were increasing nationally, and they had probably quite a big increase in the first part of that 10-year decade, and then they've just kind of the last part of that decade's been really quite bad.
Yes.
But it's still ahead of where it was a decade ago, but the trend is actually now that it's going down. So you've got to keep following that year on year. And I guess that's a big shout out for the most important thing of this is that it's annual recording data. So you can actually get those trends and see what things are happening. But, the question still keeps coming back to me. I mean, why the heck do we care about greenfinches and sparrows and what they're doing? Because at the end of the day, they're introduced birds. This isn't their native habitat. They're kind of a bit reliant on human foods, garden birds. I mean, why do we care? I mean, I get the tui, right, because it's a native bird. I get, those kind of the kiruru.
Yes. Yep. So there's a couple of things in there, actually. One is why do we care about what's happening in urban areas, gardens, rural areas that are obviously very modified by humans? And then there's the other bit that's why are we reporting on introduced species as well as native species?
Yeah, let's take those one at a time. So,
So the first part is thinking about, well, actually, we have quite a diverse landscape in New Zealand now, right? For better or worse, it doesn't look like it did 1,000 years ago.
Yeah, or even 150 years ago.
Or even 150 years ago.
No, so we've gone kind of from like a largely forested landscape to being about 30%, 27% forested, and then the rest is really kind of short urban areas, short grassland, but a very modified landscape to what it would have been originally. Yep. And of course, also there's in concert with that change in the main vegetation type, there's also the introduction of not just people, but all the introduced predators that come with those, and also not just introduced bird species, but also the removal of a whole lot of bird species that have gone extinct. So there's all those changes in that bird community. Yeah. So,
yes. So heaps of changes that our native species have had to adapt to and survive through, right? Yeah. But the key point, and you brought up a really good aspect of it right there, was that, our public conservation land only covers, I shouldn't say only because it's actually quite impressive, it covers around a third of New Zealand, right? And that's actually really, really good. Yeah. But if we only know what's happening to biodiversity in those areas, we're actually missing a huge piece of the picture. And especially when you think about something like birds, they're incredibly mobile, right? They're traveling across the whole landscape. And what's happening in the urban and rural and modified areas is affecting them as well as what happens in the more natural habitats, right? So actually getting a better picture of what's happening across all of New Zealand is really important to understand biodiversity.
Right.
And that was part of why Eric Spur founded the Garden Bird Survey was, to see what's happening across elsewhere in New Zealand and also what's happening with common species. Yeah. So it really is, it's that complementary bit to a lot of work that researchers and
also I guess that those common native species are really important as well.
Yes.
Right? So
yes,
it's actually,
exactly.
Like in its own right, it's actually really important to know what's happening with the kiruru, because the kiruru is like the biggest, am I right here, the biggest beak size. So there's some fruits that only the kiruru is the only thing that can disperse those fruits now, like the
it's doing something
berries.
Different. Yeah, it would be doing something different.
So it's actually really important
birds.
For itself, and also for the connection that it holds. Like some of them hold unique spaces in our ecology system.
So here we go. We're transitioning into why are we looking at all these different species, not just the natives, but also why do we care about the common natives, because they're not our endangered ones, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So they're all part of the ecosystem, so they're performing functions in the ecosystem. Also, we value them just because we don't value species only because they're about to go extinct. We actually care about all of them anyway, right?
And I guess there's also that thing about if kids grow up looking at birds, it's a gateway drug to conservation, right? Like those garden birds are really they're like the soft drugs. You can see them there. They're coming again. They're easy to identify. Or I don't know. Actually, sparrows and dunnocks do my head in.
Some are harder to identify, but they are a part of nature that we do interact with. I mean, you hear them, you see them,
and I guess it's also that thing where you can actually directly influence how many you have. Like if you as a family do the survey year after year, you don't just get to see the national results or the regional results. You can see your individual results, right?
True.
And you could go, okay, well, I've just shifted into this house, I'm new here, or the kids are little, everyone's got excited about this, and then you can think, okay, well, we didn't get that many birds this year. How do we get more birds?
Yes, you can do that. And actually, we'll jump into that, but I have to stick up for our poor sparrows and dunnocks.
Yes, stick up for the sparrows and dunnocks first.
So the other point, and we do bring this up in the report, is that birds are, amongst other things, useful as ecosystem indicators. So they can give us a clue to what's happening in the environment more broadly. Right. So if we even, however you might feel, and I'm not going to say what you feel about sparrows and dunnocks is wrong or not, because there are people who love them, and that's completely fair,
that's
right?
True. Yeah. My mum loves sparrows,
and it's great because you're still interacting with nature, and in some cases.
And there's great research on how beneficial it is to your mental health and actually even to your physical health. Just interacting with nature, even if that interaction with nature is literally just putting food on a bird table and looking at the birds, not physically interacting with them, just looking at them.
And people, when we did that survey of participants, people reported that, feeling senses of calm and enjoyment. And
sitting for an hour counting birds is the best, closest thing you can get to meditation, really.
Yes, and you can't look at your screens, and you can't. Yeah, I mean, you're just trying.
You can't take phone conversations. You can't.
No, I'm busy.
You just
doing
look
this.
there, and it's really good as well because it's something that you can block out and say in your diary or to anyone who's well-meaning, annoying you. I just can't do it right now. This is what I'm going to do. And you can wrap up warm. You can have a blanket, and I'm sure you're allowed to take a thermos with a cup of tea with you there. Or
I do
hot
that.
chocolate or something.
I do that.
And sit, find a nice place and sit there. I would recommend, I think, finding a comfortable seat. What are your top recommendations for doing it?
Oh, that's a good one. Definitely dressing up warmly.
Yeah, because even if you think it's not that cold, once you're sitting still, and you do kind of have to sit still, don't you? Because otherwise the birds will get scared away.
Yeah, and that's one thing that you can be surprised about, it seems. Like you think, it's been half an hour. I don't know if I'll see anything different. And then, the tui brings its partner.
Right.
Like when you've got 15 minutes left and you're thinking, oh, good, I get to put 2 instead of 1. Like, I'm glad I stayed and did it right.
That's actually something I was asking. So if you're sitting there, are you counting the total number of tui that you see? And how do you know if it's not a tui that you've already seen, if it comes and goes?
And that's why we say the maximum. So if I see 1 flit overhead and then later I see 2, I'm going to just put 2 because I'm assuming it was the same one who's gone and gotten the friend and come back.
Right, so it's the maximum that you see at any time.
So it's kind of a conservative estimate in a way.
Because, there could be different ones, but
Yeah.
But we don't know, so we're just
going to do it the same every year, so we know we're kind of making those same assumptions and the data were collected in the same way, and that's why.
Yeah, and that's like, if you're going to make any use of the data, that's probably more important. I mean, I'm going to say probably, but it really is more important.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So the consistency of it, and that's one thing that's really impressive about the New Zealand Garden Bird Survey is that the recording effort, because it's so well set out with those tally sheets and everything. So, it's got a set time that you have to do it. It's got a set amount of time that you're out there. So you're out there for one of those 9 days and for an hour during that, and you're saying, this is exactly the location I'm in. I'm not going to move around while I'm doing it. I'm just going to stay in this one location and watch for an hour.
This is what I'm going to see.
If there's a thunderstorm in the middle of that hour, what do you do?
I think you probably have to abort that recording session and try again.
And then try again the next
weekend. Because I don't think I want to advocate that you should stay outside.
Yeah, okay. So you really have to be there for the hour, right? So if it becomes intolerable, the weather, call it a day, go inside, come back. And so that's really is a good reason why you should get out there on the first weekend, right?
Yes.
Because if the weather suddenly turns bad, and we know that in Dunedin sometimes the weather can be a bit here and there and 4 seasons in one day sort of thing. So it is actually quite a good idea to get out there on the first weekend, and then if everything does turn around and the weather's not good, she says, trying to search for words that you can say on radio, then you've still got that second weekend there, which is really good.
But also, you could go out that second weekend as well, because you can submit more than one survey. That is allowed.
You are allowed. And can it be in the same place?
Yes, it can.
Right.
We'll only use one of those when we do the annual report, but both of those data points will go into the online data set that gets uploaded to...
Okay, so that's all taken care of behind the scenes. They sort of make sure that places don't get overrepresented because you're really keen and you've gone out there and sat there for 15 hours in one weekend and then 15 hours the next weekend. So just, you're allowed to do that, and that's really appreciated. But you can also do, like the same recorder, I'm assuming, can go out more than once to different places, right? So you could go and do your garden. You could do the back garden, then you could do the front garden the next day. You could do your nan's garden the following weekend.
Yes,
and,
you can go to all your friends and family around town and just help them do the survey.
I guess you can do it together in groups as well, can't you?
Yes.
Is that right? So,
yes.
So how does that work? Like if you've got like a group of kind of like a birthday party or something, you've got 5 kids and you've got them sitting there and they're like just crazy. They love birds, whatever. Can they count all, like, because you're counting the maximum number of tui that you see in an hour?
Yep.
Fantails or whatever.
Yes. So as many people or as few as you want to do it.
So it could just be one person counting them, or it could be 5 people. But they're all sitting in the same spot, right?
Yes.
We don't want them spread out around the garden. We want them all kind of...
try to stay together. But we do ask, and it's one of those optional questions, but we ask how many people participated as well. So, if 2 parents and their 3 kids sit out there, you can say 2 adults and 3 youth participated in this one. And there you go. And then we, could actually look at that, and we know then how many people have done it.
Can you just for me,
Yeah.
Could you just do like a little study and see if kids are better at identifying things than adults? Just as a little aside, once you've done all the main report things, I'd just like to know what is the age of the person who found the most birds?
We don't ask for age specifically.
Right, okay.
Going a little too much detail there. Eh?
Okay, cool. So you just kind of, like, they don't want to know your age, which is good for all of us that feel like we're younger than our chronological age would suggest.
We probably do expect you to claim you are an adult if you fill that in. But,
I know, it's up for debate sometimes, but...
But if kids want to do it on their own, they totally can.
They totally can. And, of course, you've got all those identification guides there as well. So you've got all those clues there and do the best you can.
And you can practice.
That's true. You can practice, right?
Yeah, we've got a couple of weeks. You can go out and
start
seeing like which kind of species are you seeing.
Because all those identification things are up there. Yeah, that's actually a good idea. Oh, I don't know why I didn't think of that. I'm really a last-minute person. But, you can actually just go out and practice. So go out and then... And, you don't even have to go for the full hour before the survey actually. Like when you're doing your practice runs, you can just go out for 10 minutes, half an hour, whatever. Build up your stamina so you actually get a good idea of how long an hour is to sit outside. I think that's... What's your top tip for people doing the bird survey?
Pick your time.
Pick your time.
Yeah. Be ready, be planned. It's like you've got to have your cup of tea and be ready and be out there and have the materials. Do you want your tally sheet? Do you want
and are you planning on doing it on the first weekend?
I usually try to do it on the first weekend. Sometimes I have waited, for example, if the weather wasn't as nice. Right. I will admit. Is
there a space on the form to say it was a glorious sunny day or it was drizzly?
Yep. There's a comment field where you can tell us, what you do. And so we do hear from people. It's actually quite wonderful, all the different things that we do get to hear from people. But sometimes people will say, I picked the wrong hour and the kiraru that always visits our garden wasn't here in this hour.
So then all I can say is just go back again. Submit two surveys. I mean, it's like totally not what.
But people do fill in. Here's what the weather was kind of like, or various bits.
Oh, that's interesting. And how do you entice more? Like we've only got like 2 weeks, have we? No,
9 days, 2 weekends.
No, from now.
From now until then. How do I keep enticing more people to participate?
Yeah, how do we entice more birds into the garden between now and when the survey starts? What are the things that we could do?
So there's some things we could do that would be maybe helpful immediately, and then things that might take a little longer.
Right, so there's like some things that are immediate for this year's survey, and then of course there'll be another survey next year, right? Because that's the whole point. There's a survey every year. It's like a census, but for birds.
There you go. So we've talked about feeding. That's probably the most obvious one and the most immediate result. So
Pika is great for those nectar feeders.
Exactly. And then it's a lot about which species do you want to see in your garden, and that's where you're going to get a lot more of those nectar feeders, the tui, the silver eyes, if you've got one of those types of feeders. But you also can feed wild bird seed, for example, if you do have a lot or see a lot of those other kinds of species.
Yeah. And of course the wax size will come to fat balls and seed as well.
There you go. Yeah. So you have a bit of a mix. But then there's lots of other things that are probably more longer term that you could do in your garden to just make it more bird friendly. So you think about the fantails, the piwaka waka, they're feeding on insects. So if you have a garden that's quite diverse and has, if you have a compost bin probably as well, but those things that will attract insects or create more kind of an ecosystem. Planting a variety
like just a little buzzy little midges and things that are in the undergrowth and stuff. Yeah.
Well, and that's it. Having some kind of undergrowth, having some kind of layers, not just a lawn, for example, that's going to get you a lot more species.
So actually it's a really good call to not mow the lawn.
and a good excuse.
So just and some people I think have just like a little area that they don't mow as well. So they have like a little grassy bit that's their lawn.
Yep.
And then you can just go, okay, well, that corner there is going to be like just for the birds.
Yeah.
So I'm going to leave all the leaf litter there.
And leaving some leaves or having a bit of wood or rocks or, just having some structure, having a bit of a messy spot.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that can do it.
And I guess also the diversity in the planting that you have there. So if you have just some taller things and some shorter things.
And some flowering things that flower or fruit at different times of the year.
Really good tip for how to get things that flower at different times across the year in your garden. It's amazing, this tip. One of my previous people, Jenny Yant, we were talking about bees and insects, but do you know what it is? You need to go to a garden shop on a regular basis and buy something that's flowering. Like if you go to a garden
seems
shop,
so obvious,
if you go to a garden shop once a month across the entire year and just buy a shrub that's flowering in the garden shop in Dunedin, then you'll have something in your garden every month of the year that's flowering. And right now, those little short shrubby kowhai, Dragon's Gold, I think they're called, or Golden Delight, or some varietal name like that. But they're little shrubby ones with really tiny leaves, and they're just flowering their heads off. Like just massive yellow. Crazy, yeah. No. But anyway, that's a really good tip that I mean, it seems so obvious when you think about it. It
really does.
But I was like, oh my goodness, that's changed my life. Like there's an excuse to go to a garden store once a month. And it's quite a, it's not a short-term goal, and it's a long-term goal.
But that's it. You're creating your space, and you're creating your space to share with all these lovely birds.
And it's really and there's natives that will do that as well. So if you want to have your entire garden,
and we're very fortunate that way, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
and there's massive pymelias and hebes, and and you could get a nice, beautiful flowering clematis for Easter. Yeah, and you like this. It's not just like massive big trees either. Like you can have some. There's lots of little shrubs that.
Yeah, because not everyone's garden can handle a gigantic tree.
But also, and
that's fine.
Pots work as well.
Yeah,
all sorts of crazy things for pots. Yeah. Anyway, so that's really good tips for like increasing your garden birds, and then like we don't want to make it into a competition because it's really just about what's recording there. But of course, on the form, you do get to say what your garden's like. So that all kind of gets taken into the analysis in the background. Yep. So, if you want more I'm assuming that people who are doing the garden bird survey like garden birds. So I don't know.
It's a pretty fair assumption.
I don't think it's a big stretch, right? So
no. Well, and the other thing too, of course, is we actually speaking of some of the social research that we've done, we have a question in the form asking for your opinion, people's opinions on what should we be doing to care for birds. Okay. And so that's where people are sending in comments that talk about things like creating suitable habitat, planting those species that will attract the birds, but also things like managing predators.
Right. Yeah. And that is of course another thing. So and that's you can get in touch with the Halo Project or Predator 2050, and there's all sorts of information with the DCC. I think about those.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And really good work happening there, and thinking about how you set things up in your garden. So if you are feeding birds, for example, make sure the feeder is set up in a way that keeps the birds safe from neighborhood cats and doesn't.
That's why I really like the Peka Pekas, because they've actually designed them, and I'm sure there's others that are good as well. But I know the Peka Pekas, and I know that they've been designed specifically with that in mind, so that they are safe. They've got that little platform, they've got the little nectar feeder, and they're just designed so that they are safe for the birds to actually access the food without making it like a sink where you're just really like making a cafeteria for the local cats, right? And of course, also just keeping your cat inside is actually a really good thing that you can do for the local birds. Just keeping the cat inside, make a little catio, all those sorts of things really kind of help the birds out a lot. And of course, we've had Elton from Orokonui talking about the kaka. So one thing that's we really want kaka all over Dunedin, because that would be fantastic. But one thing is not to try and feed the kaka. We want the kaka in particular to be feeding themselves. So the best thing that you can do for kaka is to just plant lovely native trees if you've got this sort of sectional garden that you've got space for. And just
and a good general rule is, human food is not
human
good
food is not bird
birds.
food, right? Yeah. So
and if you care about them, then it's probably a good idea to think about, what kinds of healthy food options. And we've collated some information from other sources on the
website.
Bird Survey site. So.
Oh my God, this Garden Bird Survey is amazing. So it's really easy, this website. It's just gardenbirdsurvey.nz, and it has got everything there. And the posters are free, right? So anyone can download the posters and print them out. How big are they? Are they like big A0 ones? Or?
They've probably set them up so that
you can print them.
At home.
I'm getting overly
but I think
excited
I think I have seen them done bigger though.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's awesome. Now, what have I forgotten to ask? Oh, I forgot to ask about the Colgate University. We'll have to do that another time. Colgate University. Who goes to Colgate University? Oh,
well, I did.
Yeah, and it's like I thought she was joking, right? Colgate University. But yeah, no, it really was made up from Mr. Colgate, wasn't it? Mrs.
So
Colgate?
actually the university was founded as the name Madison University because it was in Madison County,
where the
New
bridges
York.
are. Isn't that where the bridges of Madison County? Isn't that a movie?
No, I think that's in the South, though.
Oh, right. Okay.
I'm pretty sure. But then when it needed financial support, the Colgate family of, Colgate-Palmolive basically became kind of the benefactors of the university. No longer affiliated, but the name has stayed.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And I mean, that's really cool. I'm just going to delve into this for 30 seconds because it's a little pet project of mine, because I think that arts and sciences shouldn't be treated as separate things. And I believe that the Colgate University is what in the States they call a liberal arts university.
Yes.
So that's where you did your undergraduate. So just tell us briefly.
So really it's all of the degrees granted there are Bachelor of Arts degrees. So even those of us in biology, chemistry,
so you've got
physics.
a Bachelor of Arts
in biology.
In biology. How cool is that?
But you have a very general education. So you take core classes and in kind of a broad array of things. And I had to take 2 courses, 2 semester-long courses in each area, the natural sciences, the social sciences, and the humanities.
Right.
So and then I also had to have a foreign language.
Right.
I'd taken 3
language?
years French.
Oh, wow.
I'd taken 3 years as in high school, so I didn't have to, but I took about a year and a half of French in
So it's really kind of a Renaissance idea, a Leonardo da Vinci type idea of education. And I think, for me, I did some anthropology papers and I didn't actually study Italian. I studied Italian in Italy, but I did anthropology papers because I actually really think that having that balance, having some arts papers in a science degree or some science papers in an arts degree is a really amazing thing. And I think, Otago University is really well set up for that because there's really strength in the sciences and the arts. And I think there's a lot of talk right now about education and how we how we actually fund our universities, what the point of universities is and all of those sorts of areas. Yep. And there's a lot of, kind of people, a lot of arts, particularly departments, feel very at risk, and people are like, what's the point of having a French department at Otago University? But
it's that point about everything kind of fits together, and there's all these different ways of knowing and things that you're pulling in. I mean, and one thing I love about being involved in the Garden Bird Survey is that it is one of the most kind of interdisciplinary projects I've been involved with. And I always am learning new things, and you're bringing together all these different components of how
and you can
arts
see how
and
much
social research
benefits
and science
from it as
and
well.
Computers. I mean, it all fits together to know about the world and learn about the world and interact with people and bring people into thinking about the natural world.
And it's such an amazing project because it has all of those facets. And I think, even the art that's involved in the graphic design around the posters and all the identification and the aids and the resources.
Photographic competitions.
And the photographic competition and the colouring competition and that. It just makes the whole benefit of the survey, and that, I think that calls to people. Like if you see beautiful graphics of birds and you think, oh, they're beautiful, and like you see, like your value of them is more, and then to have that like really rigorous science behind all of that with how you're dealing with the analysis and how you're taking all of this observational data by a million different recorders. I'm just waving my hands crazily around here in the studio, people. You're taking all of that different recorder data from different people, but because you've got really clear guidelines as to how they're doing it, but easy guidelines as well. So it's really easy to do the survey and easy to do it consistently, so everyone's doing it the same, and they're giving you that little bit of additional information, and then you're sorting out. Hey, thank you so much for coming along, Angela. And I have from Estelle Flowers on, and I've got the number here, 26 Moray Place, that's just across from the Rialto, and they very kindly helped us out with this gorgeous bouquet, koha, for coming along to talk to us. And I know that really at heart, even though you're coordinator for the New Zealand Garden Bird Survey, I know that at heart you're really still a botanist, and we'd just like to thank you.
Thank you
very much.
so much. Thanks for having me.
You've been listening to the OI podcast, the shout out for the arts, sciences and Mataranga Māori.
You can support this podcast by becoming a member of the OI. Check out the Otago Institute for Arts and Sciences on Facebook or our website.
If you'd like to listen again to this episode or others from the series, look for the OI podcast on OAR FM's website, oar.org.nz.
Brought to you by the Otago Institute for Arts and Sciences, the Otago branch of the Royal Society of New Zealand.
This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On the Air.